Ms. Sardi, Mr. Maches, and Mr. Tsikouras. Please join me on an interesting discussion on carbon management, carbon capture and storage solutions and needs that we have for the industry, and also pumped hydro storage solutions and the know-how and best practices that Mr. Maches also could share with us from India and other places of the world. Please, sit here. Okay. So let's start this session on pressing issues for the energy-intensive industries. I mean, that can be one of the key themes of our discussion today, and see how all the solutions that I just mentioned before can actually support the industry. What I will do, I will start with Mr. Pandey Maches. Maches, he's an owner and leading as a CEO also one organization that has installed capacity that is definitely more than the total of our country in various places in the world, more than 17, 18 gigawatt of installed capacity of pumped storage, and another 5 to 6 gigawatt of traditional renewable energy sources, wind and solar. You have been quite a pioneer in terms of large-scale projects and how to combine all this, not by simply injecting the energy, let's say, into the grid, but also supporting the needs of industry and the demand side that has been mentioned before. So how can all these solutions and the experience that you have from your company contribute to the decarbonization of energy-intensive industries in Europe? And what do you see in between the two worlds that we have? So.
Firstly, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Costa, for the introduction. We've been, at least in our part of the world, in Asia, we are one of the largest green energy company. And we don't call ourselves now green energy company. We more call, let's say, green electrons and a electron company rather than specifying ourselves into the green energy. It's been a quite good journey similar to what Greece has. We also are a very energy deficient country. We've been buying energy for as much the day India was created in 1947. Since then, we've been buying energy from everywhere, anywhere, and we've been involved in that great politics of the world. One part saying buy from us or sell to us. So in the last 15 years, the political thought has been to move into the energy where we could be self-sustained. In 2015, the current Prime Minister started to have a 200 gigawatt of RE projects by 2025-26. We not only surpassed that, now our target has been put to 600 gigawatt by 2030, and that also will be surpassed by 2028. So this has been the read, and the PM is very clear that don't focus into domestic part of it until unless we solve the problem of the industry. We will never sustain. This energy will be of no use, because end of the day, they are the one who bring the economy up. There is the thought process starts. So we started looking into, firstly, in 2017, we inaugurated world's largest solar park. That point of time, it was a 3,000 megawatt single solar park. And three of us, board directors, we were passing through, we suddenly realized there's a nice terrain, having hills, water nearby. And it was just a thought process. You know, we had moved to, it's a first generation company. We said, why not, let's take a risk of pump storage. Now, pump storage again has a very different story. Yesterday, Costa was discussing with me, BESS prices are coming down. I still feel personally, BESS and PSP both are technologies which are required in every country. Both. You can't compete with one another. BESS is a short-term, very good technology to ramp up, ramp down. But the problem with us in India is for the BESS, and similar problem with Europe and in particular Greece is, in this kind of technology, you don't control any part of the supply chain. These all are battery technologies, which you know, without mentioning anything, how political the situation can be for batteries, for raw material supplies. So Indian PM was very clear that we will go for BESS, but our primary focus, which will be up to 60% of storage, will come from PSP. BESS we want, but we don't want to remain in the supply chain issues, asking from, although there are so many so many BESS or the battery solutions have come, lithium, now sodium, now fluid batteries, but still India as a country doesn't control any of that supply chain. We bring it from somewhere, assemble it in India. So strategically, the PM decided to focus more on PSP and BESS as the secondary part. Uh, we have currently, as of now, we have 20 gigawatts, 22 gigawatts of pump storage as a storage part. We're going to add up another 14 gigawatt by 2027 end. And you'll be surprised to know what I'm telling you now. This is what we wanted to tell to everyone. We are supplying to two of the largest steel producers of the world. We are supplying the green energy to them. The challenge is to give them the firm energy. It's not about energy. The challenge is that density of energy where they can run their furnaces on PSP or the storage. And that kind of storage, still battery will, I'm not saying batteries will not reach. Maybe one day batteries will reach, but at the moment, PSP is the only solution where you can have those long hour of storage power to be given, which is 8 hours, 9 hours. And in all these industries, which are very hard to abate, you'll be surprised that they can meet 60 to 70% of their demand, even if you supply normal RE, wind, solar. But that 30%, which is very critical mass, that is very critical for these industries too. And we realize that in India, in dollar terms, we have a demand of $1 trillion every year for that 30% of the energy. So even what initiative, what we have taken is very small, very, very small. And this is the same thing which I firmly believe for Greece, that Greece is again like us, that in supply chain, you'll be always dependent on someone on the best solution. You need it, prices are coming down. But I do feel that pump storage for long term to come in levelized basis, not because the initial cost of pump storages are very, very high, but in levelized cost basis, pump storage are very big solution and very good solution, at least for India.
Thank you, Mahesh, for this introduction. I think I will continue the discussion with Mr. Tsikouras, if you excuse me, just picking up from the last point that Mahesh was making about carbon-intensive industries. You mentioned steel industry or the cement industry that is being represented here by Mr. Tsikouras is in a similar kind of situation, if I may say. So I would like to ask you from as Titan, what is your current decarbonization strategy, and where does carbon capture storage sits alongside other initiatives on electrification, alternative fuel storage, as probably have been mentioned by Mr. Mahesh just now?
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation and the opportunity to talk about carbon capture and storage and decarbonization for the cement industry. So we are, for us, decarbonization is one of the most important strategic priorities. We've been developing our decarbonization roadmap now for the past 5 years or so. We have a very ambitious decarbonization target of 25% by 2030, which has been validated by the Science Based Target Initiative. And it has been a strategic priority for the group for decades, so it's not something new. One of the things that I think is very important to stress, and I think it was mentioned in terms of some of the heavy industries, is the hard-to-abate nature of cement. So cement is a process that cannot be electrified. There are some R&D projects out there, but it's a process that cannot be electrified. We are working very hard on our traditional decarbonization levers, like alternative fuels, like reducing the clinker to cement ratio, but that will only take us 30, maximum 40% of our decarbonization targets. The rest is something that we cannot reduce. So here's where carbon capture and storage comes in, which will basically reduce decarbonization to zero. So our roadmap takes us to 25-30% up to 2030, but after that, and that holds for the entire cement industry, there is no other solution other than carbon capture to take it down to zero. Carbon capture, as I'm sure we'll hear, is a proven solution. It's been around for 50 years. Industry has started using it only recently. So we are one of the pioneers in terms of carbon capture in Europe and globally. We are developing a very big project in our Kamari plant near Athens, which is expected to capture 1.9 million tons of CO2 per year to be stored in the Mediterranean. I think this is part of the answer because it talks about why carbon capture is important for the cement industry. I think one of the points that I think is important to also mention is why this is also an opportunity, not just for the cement industry, but for Greece as a whole. We're talking about a full value chain for Greece only that, when developed, is going to mobilize at least 3.5 billion euros in capex. We're talking about funds that have been secured in the form of grants for Greek projects across the value chain of more than 750 million euros. We're talking about not just helping Greece meet its decarbonization targets, but also maintaining industrial competitiveness in the country, and maintaining direct and indirect jobs, significant part of GDP, but also providing a very big growth platform for new products, green products, and very different productive model than has been used in the past. So both for necessity, but also for growth, carbon capture is something that's very important for the cement industry.
Thank you. And now I'll pass to Ms. Katerina Sardi, because we are referring to, again, another infrastructure project that is in the north of Greece area, as we were discussing before, in terms of all the activity that is happening here. The underground storage asset of Kavala, which is the one that would be converted now to the Campo capture storage facility that has been mentioned before. It's a very critical, let's say, project that hopefully will see its materialization very soon as well, in order to support the other projects that were mentioned from the industry that have also received European funding. And Ms. Sardi, you can tell us a little bit more about this project and the necessity of the project overall that Energy and your company has been leading in the past few years.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you as well for this, for the chance to sit in this very interesting panel. Yes, as you mentioned, what we are actually developing is a storage facility. We're not doing carbon capture. I'm just saying this for clarity. The captured CO2 is going to come from our potential clients, as Aris has just mentioned. So what we are doing, we are converting the Prinos oil field that has produced oil for the last 41 years, exactly 41 years since July 1981, into a carbon storage facility. This carbon storage facility shall enter into commercial operation 2029. It shall comprise a liquid CO2 receiving terminal, which is receiving funding under Connecting Europe facility. And CO2 shall be received by ships to a grand extent, transported offshore and injected in the underground to about 3 to 4 kilometers below the sea level. Why Prinos? Because Prinos has been explored extensively, not just for 40 years where oil production has been happening, but actually since the beginning of 1970s when exploration began and the oil reserves were actually found. We are actually starting to drill in 2026. Prinos is receiving also a grant, in addition to Connecting Europe facilities, receiving a grant from the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which ends in 2026. So we need, under this grant, we have to deliver 4 wells, 2 injectors and 2 water producers, and we're going to do so starting from early next year.
That's quite challenging. And I can pick it up also from you, Katerina, again with a second question. Energean has been in oil and gas, in the oil and gas sector all around the East Med, and it's not only this carbon storage project that we're referring to, but how important is carbon management in general and CCS for the oil and gas industry overall as a whole, and in particular for Energean's operations in Greece and in the East Mediterranean, in Israel, in Egypt, and all the other areas that you will be covering.
A very interesting question. If you allow me, I would like to take some elements of this question and separate them. CCS is not part of the business of the oil and gas industry in the sense, let me explain what I want to say. Decarbonization is part of the oil and gas industry in the sense that the oil and gas industry is also working towards reducing their CO2 footprint. Energean started with a portfolio of just oil with Prinos, and now we have a portfolio that's 86% gas. Since we have more gas than oil, we have substantially decreased our carbon footprint. We are also working on energy efficiency. We're working on methane control strategies, as many in the oil and gas sector, and we have also adopted and are actually implementing a net zero pathway. We were the first oil and gas industry that actually adopted a net zero pathway. Now, CCS is so, and essentially capture and storage is not something for the oil and gas industry in the sense that, for example, we capture our emissions produced through oil or gas production. This is not a scope for CCS. CCS is there, as Aris mentioned, to support the hard-to-abate industry where CO2 is part of the process. CCS is not an excuse for fossil fuels. But on the other hand, the oil and gas industry has experience with the subsurface. It's the oil and gas industry that has studied the subsurface. It's the oil and gas industry that has drilled thousands of wells. So our involvement in the CCS industry is through our knowledge of and experience on the subsurface, and on the part that we are competent operators to operate a subsurface storage facility that is there, however, not to promote fossil fuel production and combustion, but rather to support the hard-to-abate industry.
Thank you, Katerina. I'll move back to Aris now on more financing-related question. I mean, how financing and de-risking support measures can be applied, and how critical are they in order to enable the large-scale deployment of CCS in the cement sector in particular, or what could apply also to other heavy, let's say, intensive energy industries?
Thank you, and I think that's probably one of the most important questions that we're facing, which is how to make these projects bankable. I think the most important premise to start from is that these are new value chains. Today, there are perhaps 5 or 6 value chains like that in the world, and these are all new value chains. So the storage technology has been around for years, but the integrated value chain is new. So that means that this cannot be left to market forces. You cannot have the market forces dictate how CCS is going to happen. It needs financial support, the same way that renewables needed when they started, and the same way with a lot of technologies needed when they started. Now, this support can take many forms, and I'll mention some of them, and some are more important than others. So one of the things that is needed is the carbon border adjustment mechanism for Europe. That is important to prevent carbon leakage, and it's important because the emitting industry is going to undertake a very huge cost, and if our competitors from outside the EU who do not have the necessity to undertake these costs can undercut us, then that would create a disincentive for the emitting industries to undertake this problem. So that's number one. The second is that given the fact that a lot of these technologies, particularly on the capture side, are new, people need to understand that there needs to be some sort of grant support. And there are different mechanisms in Europe that promote this. There's the Innovation Fund, there's the RRF, there's the Connecting Europe facilities, and as Greece, I think we have been very successful in tapping into a lot of these collectively. The value chain has so far secured more than 750 million euros in grants, and I think this on itself is a huge opportunity for the country to take forward. The third part, which I think is one of the most, if not the most important part for making this project bankable, is the concept of carbon contracts for difference. These basically shield the full cost that the emitter eventually bears from the fluctuations of the ETS price. So the viability of these projects have to do with the avoidance of the eventual ETS costs. And given that this is a very volatile market, it's a very new market, unless there is visibility, then our shareholders and our financial partners will not be able to give the go-ahead for these kinds of projects. So there needs to be a very clear contract for difference mechanism. On top of that, obviously, you have to have insurance, which is a relatively new part in the sector, and you also have to support green products. And this happens through the creation of lead markets. This happens through green procurement mechanisms and so on. So there is a range of things that need to happen. If I had to pick one, that would be the carbon contracts for difference.
Thank you. It seems that you have had some discussions with NBG before on the CFD mechanism and the fact that this kind of support is needed for bankable projects. It does make sense. And talking about new value chains, Mr. Maches, even the green molecule concept that you have mentioned before, I'm moving away from purely pumped storage. It is exactly another new value chain that we identify here now. We have had some discussions on green ammonia production and how the energy industry here in Europe also is looking for this kind of energy, green energy molecules, maybe being imported into Europe with lower prices because they can be produced at a lower cost elsewhere. Or how do you think this will be evolving, and what can the European industry do in this respect?
Firstly, coming to Aris, what you said about cement industry. Actually, that we were doing some kind of research and analysis for some of the industries which can be moving to, let's say, part of renewable as quickly possible. Cement was probably, we said, it will be one of the last we will actually think about it. We have started giving renewable power to steel industries, to aluminum industries. Now, we as a company, as of now, we have our assets of $18 billion only for production of the renewables. But you'll be very surprised to know, because these are the figures we don't tell anywhere out until unless we're sitting in a conference where there are people who understand. Because these are very big numbers. It baffles. When we started, it used to kind of surprise us also that our journey will take us to this path. So now, whatever 14 gigawatt we are producing of RE, we're not going to give it in any open market. By 2027, we will stop the access of our RE to any open market, because we ourselves will be the largest consumer of this RE. So we have started putting up our first ammonia plant, green ammonia plant. And what Aris, what Costa, you were just telling me, you'll be surprised to know we have signed 4 major contracts of supplying 2 million tons of green ammonia. All 4 are in Europe. And the 5th, which we're going to sign, is in Japan in another maybe 3 to 4 days I'll be there, and then we're signing one more agreement with Japan for supplying 3 million tons. So Europe is serious about it. There's no doubt we have. But the problem in the world has been, I mean, we all sitting in this conference room. If you recall, at least I recall, when I was growing up, everybody said by 2030 coal will be finished. By 2035 there will be no hydrocarbon, nothing will be available. And the amount of, or the number of discoveries which has happened between 2010 to 2025 is mind blowing. You have all kind of fossil fuels available for next 100 to 200 years without even thinking. You can close your eyes, and if you don't want to look into RE part, just keep on using what you are doing. You don't need to bother about it. So how does, where do we come in picture? Now this is where I come in picture. Today, my cost of production of RE is lower than thermal in India. I supply lower prices. So I'm not asking any government. One time the subsidy was giving. It was given to us. We are thankful to the government or the policymakers. But today we don't ask anything. We are lower than the fossil fuel. See, the fossil fuel are there. If you really want one day this story to, all this, the carbon capturing or the pollution of the of environment, if it has to stop, then you have to compete with it. You can't beg for it. You can't say that, I want to. We have come in a clear mode where we are very, very sure that we will bring our prices when ammonia, we have now ammonia auction, tender auction was going on. So when the tender auctions were going on, the prices what we were predicting for 2035, people have quoted now at this. 2035, we were expecting those prices will be like on this range. But people are quoting it now. They are saying that let's take a challenge. And the buyers are from everywhere. So what I'm doing, it's a very interesting process which is going on, which I want to share. So now we have green hydrogen buyer in Europe. Now the challenge is we are producer of ammonia and we need we need electrolyzers and to produce hydrogen. So now what we are doing, we'll be selling to one of the largest chemical companies of the world, ammonia from India. They'll bring ammonia, NH3, and where the nitrogen and hydrogen components will be splitted and hydrogen will be taken over as, again, to use in the industry. So its industry is revolving very fast. And we are first generation entrepreneur. We all started our journey first generation. So it's a thought process which takes you anywhere. So we, 3-4 of us who started it, we said that, we have enough. How much you want to give to your kids? 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. And if he has to lose everything, he'll lose. So we decided that whatever we earn, we will put in the industry back to see whether we can fight what as a concept or not. We want to fight fossil fuel as a concept, not that we want to ask them that, we will back down, we'll bring the prices down. No. We will have that innovation. We started in 2021 a school where we hired all the physics graduates from entire country and including the neighboring country, just to find out how quantum physics can actually help us in bringing all these chemical formulas down. So I do feel Europe will come in the same nature. It's not me or, because the prices, whatever the PSP prices today are high, but they will come down. End of the day, levelized cost is very low. Levelized cost is and PSPs are there for 50 years, 60 years, even 100 years. What I build as a PSP today will survive for 100 years. This will go to not only my children, to their children, it will be 2-generation games. So when you ask me whether Europe will come, because end of the day, you see the sphere of influence. You guys have been energy deficient from the time you came into the picture, not as a Greece. Germany, France, all are energy deficient countries. Geopolitics, what you see today, will be more difficult, more complicated in years to come. So this is, as a country, you need to decide where you want to place yourself, where you can dictate the terms, or you can at least participate in a conversation if you know that I am strong. And that is where we feel that India has to become energy independent if it has to be bullied by, or have to be kept out of this bullying by everyone.
Thank you, Matthias, with this, and I will ask you to have a closing statement, if you want, from our very interesting discussion for 1 minute, and then I will pass it to the next speakers as well.
The closing statement is, this is what I feel about energy as a sector, and I wish and I am very hopeful that not PSP, not BESS, renewable as an energy system should come to those countries which are energy deficient, which are dependent on other countries to supply their energy needs. I firmly believe all the engineers in the world, whether it is Indian, Greek, American, they all are capable of doing it. You just need initial support to push it up. Your engineers are very well capable of doing it. And I wish Greece moves ahead in that direction.
Thank you for this positive note. Katerina, what's your a closing statement of our discussion from what we have heard so far?
Oh, I have heard a lot so far, and some of very, very impressive statements. I think that at least on the Greek side, we are in a and on the CCS chain in particular, I think we are in a very good position at this stage, because we have managed as a chain to cover part of the market failure through a number of grants. Aris has already mentioned these grants of more than 750 million. We are now standing at the point where we are just about to realize investments of over 3 billion, and an amazing number for Greece. And what I would like to put in this context is the word accelerate. We need to, because these investments need to happen within a certain time frame. The licensing process needs to be accelerated. We need stability, we need clarity, we need simplicity in the framework. We need overall recognition that this is a new chain with all the difficulties and the opportunities of this new chain, and we need to accelerate to make it happen.
You need the support of every single stakeholder in this ecosystem, and it's a very, very positive note. Aris, closing.
I think Katerina covered most of what I wanted to say, but I wanted to also give a bit of an additional spin, which is that the value chain has not only been successful in securing the grant, the value chain has been successful in coming together. And I think we should not underestimate that. We are stakeholders from very different industries. So you have cement, refining, oil and gas production, shipping, electricity providers, all trying to align projects, align timelines, align everything in terms of implementation. I think this should not be underestimated as a success. The sector is in a critical juncture, and we're ready to start implementing the projects. In my view, what is missing is a clarity in terms of the support. So there needs to be a clear understanding: what is the framework, what is the role that the state is going to play, what is the support that they're willing to give, and to make sure that this acts as a binding glue to orchestrate the CCS value chain and to put it together.
So with some nice positive notes of inspiration, acceleration and collaboration that you have mentioned of all the stakeholders, we would like to thank our excellent speakers for this nice discussion. Thank you.